It's 5 a.m. in Cleveland, Ohio, and a black Toyota is alone on the empty road. Inside are two passengers, 20-year-old Dominic Russo and 19-year-old Davian Flanagan. They don't know it yet, but this will be the last ride they ever make. Dominic's girlfriend is in the driver's seat, 17-year-old Mackenzie Sharilla. The trio have spent the night smoking and drinking with friends in nearby Parma, and now they face the short drive back to Strongsville, where their night of partying will come to an abrupt end. Because this wasn't a turn they were ever supposed to take. However, as police sit down to come to grips with the tragedy, they begin to realize there's more to the accident than meets the eye.
Yeah, there's like crazy rumors like the girl didn't she was just messing with her boyfriend. She would fight with him all the time and swear up and down that they'll kill themselves both. And we feel like Davian was just a victim of it.
Soon enough, they find themselves hurtling down a rabbit hole towards the truth, coming face to face with jealousy, narcissism, and a relationship so hollow it was only a matter of time before it caved in completely. From the outside, Mackenzie and Dominic's relationship appears as happy and loving as any. The couple first met in high school, immediately hitting it off and spending all their time together. One thing they have in common is their love for smoking, something they make no attempt to hide when posting about it online. Aside from their narcotic use, the two come from wildly different backgrounds. Dominic, who's 2 years older than Mackenzie, is a joyful young man with a passion for singing, supported by a loving family at home who's always had his back. Mackenzie, however, is a different story. She's viewed around school as a kind of influencer, posting glamorous photos on her Instagram and raking in generous sponsorships from agencies. This is a lavish lifestyle that's aided by her parents' existing wealth, and they treat their daughter generously, meaning Mackenzie has the freedom to go out drinking, partying, and doing practically anything she desires. On the night of July 30th, 2022, this is exactly what she has planned. Mackenzie's 18th birthday is just 2 days away, so she and Dominic plan on celebrating it by attending a graduation party at a mutual friend's house. Their night begins at 11 p.m. as they arrive at the party and begin to smoke. Footage captured from the scene shows a party in full swing, with the couple seemingly enjoying themselves. Onlookers at the time will later claim they saw nothing in either Dominic or Mackenzie's behavior to suspect what was about to occur. The only unusual thing is that Mackenzie has brought psilocybin mushrooms to the party, even offering some to the host. While drug use was nothing uncommon for her, her friends have never known her to even take them before, let alone offer them out freely. Mackenzie and Dominic stay at the party until after 3 a.m., when they decide to make the short trip across town to hang out at another friend's house. They spend a little under 2 hours here watching South Park, making it 5 a.m. before Mackenzie finally decides it's time to call it a day. The couple step outside, with Dominic moving to drive as usual. However, Mackenzie seems strangely insistent that she should drive for a change, something to which Dominic reluctantly agrees. But even more peculiarly, when their friend Davian asks Mackenzie for a ride home, she flat out refuses, arguing about the matter with Dominic. Eventually, he manages to convince her to let Davian accompany them, and they begin their short journey back to Strongsville. Only, their destination is one they'll never reach. The route home has them following the same road almost all the way from Parma. However, much to the confusion of the passengers, Mackenzie makes a sudden turn to the right, going in completely the wrong direction. Instead of finding a place to pull in and turn around, Mackenzie slams on the accelerator, gaining more and more speed by the second. By the time they reach the end of Progress Drive, the car is traveling at around 90 miles per hour. And at the junction up ahead, an abrupt ending looks set to stop the car in its tracks. At the last second, Mackenzie swerves, narrowly missing the tree and careening onto the grass by its side. Unfortunately, the momentum of the car is too great, and there's nothing anyone can do to prevent the collision that's now unavoidable.
Southwest Dispatch.
Yes. Are you familiar where Progress coincides coincides with Albion Road there in Strongsville?
Yep.
There's a car that smashed up against the building. They ran the curb. I can see they smashed the sign and hit the building. The car's crashed.
The wreck that's left behind remains unattended for over 45 minutes, with its occupants trapped helplessly inside.
Duty.
Radio. This car's split in two. Radio, there's an occupant inside. Send us a squad now. We gotta bust the window out. Send us some more units.
Any more units to progress now, Amita?
Now!
It's well past 6 a.m. when a passerby finally reports the incident, sending responders toward a scene that already appears hopeless. The officer immediately sees an occupant unconscious in the driver's seat, but the smashed chassis obscures the other passengers from view.
Radio, we got at least 2 occupants in here. No one's moving. Oh my God. Oh my God. Times 3, guys. Radio, 3 occupants. No one's conscious. No one's breathing.
As the officers attempt to extract Davian's body from the back seat, they immediately realize his chances are slim. Unfortunately, the same can be said for Dominic, who, just like his friend, is clearly dead in the passenger seat. Fearing the worst, the officers call fire rescue to help with the extraction, believing they have 3 deceased individuals on their hands.
Radio, they're gonna need full extraction on all 3.
But then, while their focus is on Davian on the back seat, they suddenly notice movement from the driver's side window. Mackenzie is still alive and conscious, but she's badly injured and needs urgent help. As fire rescue arrives, they're now in a race against time to save her from the wreckage.
What's your name, dear?
Mackenzie is wheeled away and placed in the ambulance, where paramedics assess the injuries she suffered.
Which one? Right leg? Right leg? All right, I'm going to get on that driver being extricated. Okay?
She's now set to be airlifted to the hospital, where she'll undergo a number of surgeries to treat the multiple fractures she suffered. But her injuries are nothing compared to the tragic fate of her passengers. Both have suffered fatal blunt force trauma, with the majority of Dominic's injuries being to the trunk and abdomen, while Davian's were primarily to the head. As officers step back to assess the crash, the only surprise is that Mackenzie managed to survive it. Scene analysis will later discover the car had been traveling at over 100 miles per hour as it careened towards the building, swerving through a sign before colliding with the wall. Witnesses called it the worst crash they'd ever seen, describing how the car split in 2 on impact. To make matters worse, no sign of braking can be seen anywhere on the car's path, and Mackenzie was found with her foot still pressing the accelerator, suggesting she continued to accelerate all the way until the collision. Once her safety has been secured, questions are immediately raised about how Mackenzie could have allowed the crash to occur, and it's not long before cops discover a troubling probability. In her possession at the time of the accident were a number of concerning items: weighing scales, psilocybin mushrooms, and a substantial amount of marijuana, as well as various other pieces of drug paraphernalia used earlier that night. A toxicology report reveals the presence of THC in Mackenzie's blood, a psychoactive component that might have played an integral role in her loss of control. Despite the discovery, the collision is ruled an accident, with police citing Mackenzie's decision to swerve off course as attempted diversionary action. What's more, Mackenzie has been diagnosed with a condition known as POTS, which can lead to dizziness and fainting. In combination with her drug use, this might help explain just how she lost control. For now, however, all the police can do is inform the parents of the deceased and look into the circumstances that led to their deaths. Mackenzie remains in the hospital, where she becomes inconsolable upon hearing of Dominic and Davian's deaths. But soon enough, the police will find evidence that casts doubt on their presumption of innocence, leading them away from the picture of a heartbroken girlfriend and towards a theory far darker than they originally imagined.
Yeah, there's like crazy rumors like the girl like didn't like she was just messing with her boyfriend. She would fight with him all the time and like swear up and down that they'll kill themselves both. And like we feel like Davion was just a victim of it.
Like I personally feel like she was trying to kill herself in that crash.
For the next 2 weeks, Mackenzie remains at the hospital, where she receives a flood of support from friends and family. Around this time, she sets up a GoFundMe for Dominic's funeral, hitting the $25,000 target in only a week. She's discharged from the hospital just in time to attend Dominic's funeral, marking the occasion with a collage she's prepared of their favorite moments together. A series of photos from Mackenzie's Snapchat suggest she is deeply in mourning. As well as sending multiple pictures to friends of her crying in her hospital bed, she also dresses up in Dominic's clothes, claiming his smell is comforting to her. She even goes so far as to message Dominic's parents, apologizing for what happened, claiming she would give her life for Dominic's if she could. However, as time goes on, Mackenzie's messages become increasingly pushy. Dominic's father, Angelo, has ignored her outright, but his mother, Christine, has been replying with some heartfelt messages of her own. Mackenzie asks if she can visit Dominic's house, but when Christine explains why she doesn't want it to happen, she doubles down. Mackenzie's insistence only grows from here, a fact that will shock police as they gain access to the conversations. For now, however, they begin to interview Mackenzie and Dominic's friends instead, who believe they have uncovered some concerning evidence regarding the crash.
All right, so you have Life 360 so that you were able to track the phone? Everything how fast?
It shows the top speed where they grew up.
About 90 miles an hour, I heard.
It says exactly how it said they didn't.
There was no hard braking until like it'll show you when they hard brake, and that was when they hit the wall. It didn't even say they hard brake when they hit the sign.
Of course, this is the same discovery forensic analysts made at the scene, but to close friends of the victims, it's understandably shocking. And this isn't the only information they have to offer. There's been a dark rumor circulating that has them convinced this accident wasn't as unavoidable as it might have been.
Crazy rumors like the girl like didn't like she was just messing with her boyfriend. She would fight with him all the time and like swear up and down that they'll kill themselves both. And like we feel like Davion was just a victim of it.
This claim is concerning, to say the least, but it isn't something new to the officers, or even to Mackenzie herself. See, in the weeks following the crash, not everyone has been so supportive of her situation. Messages have been sent from fake accounts to Mackenzie's social media, harassing her and throwing insults at her. But worst of all, these messages contain serious accusations claiming that Mackenzie deliberately caused the fatal crash in an attempted suicide she had been planning for months. These are allegations she has discussed directly with Dominic's mother, and she believes she knows exactly who's behind them. Not long later, Tyler is brought into the station for interview.
We understand you're not under arrest.
Yeah.
You walk out anytime you want. We have approximately 10 questions that we wanted to ask you. How long have you known Mackenzie?
Probably when I moved to Strongsville, so 9th grade. I came here probably when I was 16. I came from Brook Park.
So how old are you now?
18. Actually, I was probably 15 when I came here. So
15?
Yeah.
So about 2 years ago?
Yeah.
So how long were you guys in a relationship, you and her?
Well, we were all friends in a friend group at first, and Joey dated her first before I came to Strongsville. I was only dating her for probably like a month and a half or like 2 months. Me and Dom found out that she was cheating on us basically, but it wasn't like anything official, so it wasn't no hard feeling to her. I was basically like I didn't really have much with her relationship wise because we didn't date that long, but like friend wise, like she was crazy. Like our group chat, there was some days like we would all be getting ready for school, and she would be sitting there spam calling the group chat to the point where like we can't pick it up to even like answer it because she's just calling and declining and calling and declining, and then we finally do pick it up, and it was something as small as I can't figure out what I need to wear to school. It's like, why are you blowing up on phones? All of us, like, it was everyone that went to Kalahari that was in that group chat. So it's like, are you blowing us all up just over something as little as you can't figure out what you're trying to wear at school? Like, she would be like just
She like mentally just not all there? I mean,
Yeah, I don't think she's just mentally all there. Like, I personally feel like she was trying to kill herself in that crash, and she failed on doing so, is what I feel like. And I feel like she had no regard for Davion, and I feel like they got in an argument, her and Dom, and she threatened to kill him.
Had she ever threatened that before?
She hasn't ever threatened to hurt anyone, but she's threatened probably, like, she hasn't like physically said like I'm gonna kill myself, but she's like, you know what I'm saying, like made it to the point where
Alluded to it?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like,
What Tyler is claiming is disturbing beyond belief, but the officers soon discover it checks out. A report from 2020 shows Mackenzie's father, Steve, called emergency services after Mackenzie threatened suicide, leading to a recommendation for a psychiatric evaluation. Until this point, investigators have been treating the crash as the accident they believed it was. However, this new discovery leads them towards the darker possibility that Mackenzie's mental health might be to blame. And as they continue to look through the records, it's not long before they uncover a pattern of behavior that backs up what Tyler has told them. Perhaps stemming from her influential status, Mackenzie's well known to have had an ego throughout her time in high school. What cops were not aware of, however, was just how serious Mackenzie's behavior had become. One incident involved a disturbance at school back in 2018, where a disagreement boiled over, leading to a fistfight between her and another girl in which punches were thrown and police were called. The misbehavior does little to explain the crash on its own, but when considering the psychological state of the driver, a few things start to become abundantly clear. Mackenzie has struggled with mental health issues her entire life, and her relationship with Dominic has not been immune. The forceful messages she's been sending to his mother have only become more demanding. As Christine's reluctance continues, Mackenzie's messages begin to dry up. Following the abrupt end of this conversation, Mackenzie's behavior takes a troubling turn. It's now October, over 2 months since the crash, and although she remains in a wheelchair, barely able to talk, she decides to resume her normal social activities, attending a Halloween party in her first public appearance since the accident. But what shocks those who know her is the seemingly carefree TikToks she posts in the build-up, and, more disturbingly, the fact she's chosen to dress as a corpse. She's also spotted attending a music festival, leading to mounting questions around her response to the deaths she's caused. Her parents come out around this time to publicly defend her behavior, claiming she's a young girl who deserves to have some fun. But internally, the police have continued to monitor the situation, and what they've discovered is about to confirm their darkest fears. Mackenzie had traveled the exact route of the accident 7 times before the crash, seemingly practicing for the day she'd do it for real. Despite her outward attempts to portray Dominic as the love of her life, behind the scenes, there were serious problems in the relationship. Mackenzie was a jealous partner who would frequently begin fights with Dominic, and when confronted with criticism over her own behavior, she would snap, reverting to spiteful, non-constructive insults. But by far the worst example of Mackenzie's volatile attitude comes as police interview another of Dominic's friends, who recalls a worrying incident that occurred just a week before the crash.
I was actually at Christine's house. So Dominic called her, and he was upset. And she was like, "Well, where are you at?" And he was like, "I'm driving in a car with her," and he was like, "I just want to go." He was like, "I don't want to be around her anymore. I'm done." So she was like, "Well, do you mind going to go pick him up?" I said, "Not a problem." So as I leave her house, go to the highway, get on the highway, and I call him. I said, "Well, where are you at?" And she was like, "I'll crash this car." And I'm like, "Dude, what you mean?" I'm like, "Dominic, just tell her to pull over." Like, I'm right behind you guys, so as soon as I pull up, she's just going like this, and he's trying to get out the car. And once he get in the car with me, I said, "Dude, you know, you don't have to deal with this. You're young, you know, you have a long life to live. You know, you don't have to deal with no chick in her attitudes, whatever. If you're not happy, just let her go. You know what I mean? If it was true love, she'll be back." So we're sitting there having that conversation in the car on the way back home. And man, I would have never expected that would even happen a week later.
When you were on the phone with him, can you clarify again what you heard her say over the phone?
She said she'll crash this car right now.
this alarming account all but seals the suspicions that have been slowly developing over the past few weeks. Rather than the happy couple Mackenzie seems set on remembering, in reality, the pair had broken up just a week before the crash. They got back together a couple of days later, but it seems like the damage had already been done. Furthermore, Mackenzie was already well known for her reckless driving, having got into confrontations in the past over her disregard for safety. But the account police have just heard has pushed this well beyond anything they expected. They now have clear evidence of Mackenzie's volatile nature behind the wheel, and a real motive as she realized her relationship with Dominic was on the rocks. Coupled with everything else they've learned, police decide they now have enough to reclassify the case from an accident to a premeditated homicide, one orchestrated by an unstable and potentially suicidal murderer who decided to take Dominic and his unfortunate friend Davian with her as she went. On November 4th, 3 months following the crash, Mackenzie Shirilla is finally arrested and transported to jail, where she'll finally be confronted with the consequences of her actions. Upon hearing of her arrest, Mackenzie's parents turn up at the police station, unhappy with the decision.
But I need to speak to my daughter because you guys aren't allowed to speak to her at all. That's from the lawyer. He does not want you guys speaking to her. And I can get him on the phone and he can tell you that over the phone if that works, or I can go in and tell her not to open her mouth. But how you guys did this on the weekend is just, well, all you do is go, hey, there's a warrant for, we would have brought her right down here with no problem, but you hit it. It's just unbelievable. I mean, 18.
So the warrant was issued today, so we executed it today. The warrant wasn't issued earlier.
Well, you could have made a phone call, couldn't you? You had your creeper out in front of my yard watching.
So, she can't take any, she's an adult, she can't take any phone calls right now. She'll be transferred downtown.
Okay.
I don't know when.
Service just called to advise.
Am I going to be allowed to have a 2-minute conversation with her?
You cannot talk to her while she's here, no.
Why doesn't she get a phone call? If you arrested her, why don't she get a phone call?
She was just brought in. They're going to process her. As soon as they get the time for her to make a phone call, she will be able to make a phone call.
You just need to advise her. She has a lawyer.
She's a lawyer. She does have a lawyer.
She is 18 years old and she could speak that.
Yeah, but she's a dumb 18-year-old that just turned 18.
Well,
and you guys are all the kids nowadays are dumb. And these guys are going to take advantage of her. She's not allowed to speak to you guys. I'm telling you that.
Her attorney can call us.
Don't ask her any questions.
As it turns out, the problems run even deeper for the Shirilla family, as they recently ran into money troubles that caused them to declare bankruptcy, meaning they're unable to bail Mackenzie out. After all the pain she's inflicted, Mackenzie is finally about to realize just how much harm her actions have inflicted. Mackenzie's trial takes place the following August in front of a packed courtroom with cameras looking on. She continues to insist the crash was an accident, arguing that the street was dark and that a passenger pulled the steering wheel. However, a mechanical evaluation of the car found no abnormalities in its function, and responders on the scene noted that Mackenzie's foot had remained pressed to the accelerator with no brake applied. Mackenzie's mother attempts to defend her daughter's actions, while Dominic's mother, Christine, believes Mackenzie is mentally unwell and that she wanted to die in the crash alongside the others. Ultimately, the judge draws upon Mackenzie's twisted attitude in the aftermath, in which she requested to officers at the hospital that her driver's license be taken away for 10 years, rather than having to face any other charges. It's found that Mackenzie had planned the attack by visiting the site in the weeks prior, and that she had taken advantage of the empty streets to unleash her act. Mackenzie Shirilla is sentenced to 2 life sentences on 12 counts, and she now resides at the Ohio Reformatory for Women in Marysville, where she'll remain for at least 15 years until eligible for parole.